Hi everyone, welcome to this week's bonus training, which is all about microtask outsourcing. So first of all, what is microtask outsourcing? For our purposes, a microtask can be two different things. It's either a manual task that you don't need a highly skilled person to do, or it is a skilled task, but you only need a person to do it one time. So in either of these cases, there's no reason for you to go through the hiring process for a full-time or part-time person to be part of your team to do these tasks. The other thing about a micro task is that it should be very inexpensive, ranging from 5 cents up to $10. So first, I'm going to be giving you some examples of what these micro tasks might look like. And then I'm going to give you some websites that you can go to hire people to do these micro tasks for you. Okay, the first example is to get feedback for your landing pages or sales pages. Before you spend a lot of money bringing traffic to this landing page or sales page, it's a good idea to test your message or your call to action. One of the biggest mistakes that Gonzalo sees business owners make is that they believe that their opinion matters, and it really doesn't. In the end, they are not their customer. And so that's why it's really important to get feedback from outside people about your message or your call to action. And this call to action can be sign up for a newsletter, or it can be to buy a product or a service. So what Gonzalo does personally when he creates a new landing page or even a sales letter, he will test it on 25 to 200 people to see if the message that he's communicating produces the results that he wants. And a little bit later in this training, I'm going to show you some examples of some tests that Gonzalo has done. That way you can get your own ideas. The next example that you can use microtask outsourcing for is to translate your PPC ads. If you're running PPC ads in different countries, this is a really easy way to get somebody to translate them for you. Gonzalo will use this quite often when he's advertising in different Spanish-speaking countries, because something that is said in Mexico could be said very differently in Argentina, where he's from. So it's a really fast way to get somebody to say it correctly. Another example that you can use microtask outsourcing for is to find journalists or reporters to help you get PR. So let's say, for example, that Gonzalo wants to sell his Joyproof software to the public. So he wants to promote his business and get some PR. The first thing that he would do is hire somebody to look up articles on Google News that are related to outsourcing and remote employees. He would have them record the link of the article and the name of the journalist or reporter who wrote it, as well as their contact information. Now, the reason he does this is because somebody that's already written about this topic is more likely to be open to promoting something that's related to it. Another example that works really well for Gonzalo is to get copywriting ideas, also known as sales copy. And one of the ways that he uses this is for his banner ad messages. So let's say, for example, that he wants to advertise the Joyproof software. So the job description would be really simple. He would, first of all, explain what Joyproof is and how it works. And then he would say, I want my message for my banner ad to be less than 7 words. It has to motivate people to click. How would you say this message? And then he'll get literally dozens and dozens of people giving him ideas of how to say this message. And then he can use these ideas for his A/B testing. And then obviously the messages that convert the best, he will use. Another way he uses this is to get feedback or opinions about his sales copy. He's also used it to test out the message of his cold emails. So these are just a few examples of how Gonzalo uses microtask outsourcing, but I'm also going to give you some more examples for each website that I'm going to cover. All right, so the first site I want to show you is called Microworkers. And the main thing that Gonzalo uses Microworkers for is to get feedback for his landing pages and sales pages. So let me show you a specific example of how he did this. So here you can see a job that he had posted on Microworkers. The title is Opinion on Website. And you can see that he wanted 200 people to do this task and that he was willing to pay 5 cents per opinion. It also says that the task would take less than 10 minutes to finish. And you can also see that the job is assigned to US users. For this specific task, he wanted the opinion of US users only. But if you do open up your job internationally, it will get done a lot faster. And in this section down here, you can see the instructions to the workers. In step 1, it tells them to go to a specific link, which I'm going to show you in just a second. Step 2, click the Start 5-second test button and look at the site. And then it automatically redirects them after they're looking at that page for 5 seconds to a form that they're going to answer questions. So step 3, when 5 seconds pass, you give me your thoughts on the site by completing the form that refreshes after 5 seconds. When they go to the link that's listed in step 1, it takes them to this page that says, look at the following page and remember as much as you can. Then they click the Start 5-second test and it automatically redirects them to the page that we want feedback on. So for this task, it redirects them to this opt-in page. So they have 5 seconds to look at it and remember as much as they can. And then it automatically redirects them to our Google form that has specific questions that we want to know. And here's the form. You can see it's just a very simple Google form. And it has just a few questions. What do you remember? What can you do on this site? Who is this site for? Tell us about yourself, gender, age, do you have children? And these were questions that were just important to Gonzalo for this specific test. But you can ask whatever questions you feel are important to know about the page that you're testing. On a side note, just in case you're wondering why he only has them look at the site for 5 seconds, is because he wants to know their first impression opinion, mainly to decrease bounce rate and to improve his conversion rates. Now, as you can see from this example, it was very clear and easy for the users to do. And if you like how Gonzalo did this and you want to do something similar, I've included this link in the resource section. You can give it to a JavaScript programmer to customize it for the page that you want feedback on and direct it to your own Google form. It should only take them 5 minutes to do for you, and it will cost you around $10. It's really, really easy. The next website that we use for microtask outsourcing is Amazon Mechanical Turk. And this site is very similar to MicroWorkers. Gonzalo uses it for different reasons. One of the tasks that he outsources a lot with Amazon Mechanical Turk is business information extraction. An example of this is, let's say you have a list of businesses that you want to solicit or partnership with. And you want to get more information about these businesses, like their website, Facebook profiles, LinkedIn profiles, YouTube channels, Google or Yelp reviews, any additional information that would be helpful for you to know about these businesses. You can use people from this website to get that information for you. Now, of course, you can have your VA do this, but because it's not a highly skilled task, it's basically just a little bit of research and then copy and paste. Some of you may not want to use your VA's time and the salary to do this. Literally, you can get people to do this for pennies. So this is something that Gonzalo uses Amazon quite often for. So here's an example of how Gonzalo used Amazon Mechanical Turk to get business information on Fortune 1000 companies. And as you can see from this sheet, he was able to get a lot of information on these companies, specifically the name of the CEOs. And most of the time, he was able to get their email as well. And you can do something similar for any directory that you want to get information about. And as I mentioned before, you can probably tell by just the amount of information that it was a lot cheaper for him to do it this way than to have one of his VAs do it. It probably would have taken a VA a couple days to do all this research and the copy and paste. So it was definitely a lot cheaper going this route. And this is something that he could have done on MicroWorkers as well. So either one of the sites, you can do something like this. Another thing that he'll use Amazon for, which is very similar to MicroWorkers, is to get feedback and to test his banner ads. He'll show a couple different ads that he's had designed and he'll ask, which one do you like better and why? How did it make you feel? Did you trust the ad? Simple things like that. And then of course, he'll narrow it down and choose one or two that he'll then do A/B testing on. And the last site I want to talk about is Fiverr. This is a really popular site. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with it. You can get lots of different things done using this site. A couple of things that Gonzalo really likes using Fiverr for is to get t-shirt designs. We know that a lot of you are involved with Teespring, so this is a really easy way that you can get designs for that. We also use it a lot for infographics. And just to show you the quality of what you can get for $5, this is an infographic that Gonzalo had designed for one of his products. A course that teaches businesses how to get their first government contract. And as you can see from this infographic that this designer also created all of the illustrations. So Gonzalo provided him with the content and then this is what he came up with. It's really, really great. He paid $5 for the infographic design and then he paid an additional $5 to get the Photoshop file just in case he needed to make any changes later. So for $10, this is the kind of quality that you can get on Fiverr. Another thing we use Fiverr for is for transcription services. We will have our video and audio files transcribed into text files. Another area is article writers. We have had part-time and full-time article writers as part of our team in the past, but we've also used Fiverr for this as well, and we've found some really great article writers. It's really easy to look at their past gigs to see the style of their writing and to also read the reviews. And one of the things that's great about using Fiverr to find article writers is that you can see what kind of niche they're used to writing in. So if we're looking for something specific, this is a really easy way to find an article writer that's already kind of tested and vetted for us. Another thing we use Fiverr for a lot is for photo editing. And this is really good if you don't have somebody really technical on your team and you don't want to really waste time teaching your VA to do it. You can just hire somebody on Fiverr to do that for you. Another task we use Fiverr for is for logo design. And this is a really great way to get multiple ideas. Obviously you're only going to need a logo for one specific business or product once. So of course you would want to use microtask outsourcing, but Gonzalo will usually hire 2 or 3 different people for this task just to get some different ideas and then he'll choose something from that group. Another thing we use Fiverr for is for copywriting, also known as sales copy. And this is really a hidden gem because a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs don't really have a big budget to hire a really high-end professional copywriter. And there's a lot of copywriters on Fiverr that are starting out. They've had the training, but they don't have a ton of experience, so they can't charge the high rates. So it's really an advantage for us to use them. Now, although Gonzalo does have professional copywriters that he works with on a regular basis, sometimes, depending on the project, he'll still use Fiverr to find new copywriters. So what he'll do is he'll hire 4 or 5 copywriters for the same project. That way he can get different ideas and different perspectives. And then he'll pick and choose the areas that he likes from the different letters, and then he'll just put them all together in one. And just on a side note, you don't have to know everything to tell the copywriter ahead of time because most of them will have their own questionnaire about your product or service, and then they'll use your answers to go ahead and write their copy. So you don't have to worry about that. Another thing that Gonzalo really likes to use Fiverr copywriters for is to write his cold email scripts. And he'll use the same technique that he does for regular sales copy. He'll hire 4 or 5 different copywriters at the same time to give him, different scripts, and then he'll choose what he likes best to work with. And just like his banner ads, he'll always do A/B testing and he'll track which one is working best. Of course, we want to use the one that has the best conversions. So all you would need to do in this scenario is just clarify with the copywriter that you hire that this sales copy is going to be used as an email instead of on a landing page or a sales page. And really, that's the only difference. Now, I just wanted to mention really quickly that once Gonzalo gets these copywriting gigs back, either for a sales page or for a cold email, he will use Microworkers and Amazon Mechanical Turk for feedback on that sales copy. Sometimes as the business owner or the entrepreneur, you know a lot about your product and service, and sometimes this could be a disadvantage because you expect the user or the prospective client to know what you're thinking. And this isn't always the case. And so even though he thinks it may be good copy, he will always test because he is not the customer. And so you can do the same thing as well. I wanted to share that with you. And it's really cheap. You can get 100 people to give you feedback for $25. It's really a no-brainer. Now, Gonzalo will also use Fiverr to get feedback, but this feedback is a little bit different. And he'll use this to get feedback on a website, landing page, opt-in page. You know, when he wants to see the user actually on the site talking about it. For some of you, you might be familiar with the website user testing. It's very similar to that, but user testing is pretty expensive. This way you can get user feedback and actually see it happening for $5. If you do a search for the word Camtasia, you'll find people who are willing to give you a video review or feedback about your website, which is essentially the same thing as user testing. You can also find people to give you feedback by searching website feedback. Now, if you're not quite sure what questions to ask, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. What Gonzalo does is he just uses the same exact questions that user testing uses. So let me just show you real quick how this works. If you go to user testing's website, let's say you want to get feedback on your website. There's actually specific questions that they already have in there that you can use. And you can actually choose different categories for giving feedback on your website. You can choose all popular tasks, first impressions, shopping, things about your competitor. So I'll go ahead and post this link underneath the video so that you can go through the different questions to get ideas. Also, you can see examples from others that have used user testing, and you can see what they used it for, what kind of questions they asked. So just a ton of really great free resources. But instead of paying $100 to get one feedback, you can go to Fiverr and pay $5 or $10. One specific thing that Gonzalo uses the video feedback for is to test his call to action on his different landing pages and websites. One of the things he learned years ago is actually a principle that Google uses, and they call it their BFB test, which stands for the big freaking button test. Obviously, you may figure it out, they use a different word other than freaking, but the idea behind it is when somebody looks at your website, they need to step 10 feet back from that website, and they should be able to tell within 3 seconds what the one call to action is, what you want them to do on your website. And if they can't tell within 3 seconds, then the call to action is not clear. And if you think about Google's websites, that's why they're all so simple and powerful. Most of the time, you can only do one thing. And so once he learned this, he realized he needs to make sure that that's very clear for people, especially, prospective clients, buyers. And so he'll use Fiverr to get feedback from these type of people, because with the video feedback, you can see real time what is going on in their head. They'll talk about, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure what I should be doing here. There's a ton of navigation. There's a lot of text. There's a newsletter sign up form here. What should I be doing? So this is a really powerful way to use Fiverr. Another really powerful thing that you can use Fiverr for is to practice and get feedback from real people about your sales presentation. And the sales presentation can be a real live pitch that you're going to be giving. It can also be to practice your cold calling. So instead of practicing on real clients where you could just bomb. Why not pay people on Fiverr? And here's some examples. They'll do 15 minutes to 30 minutes on Skype, and you can run through your presentation, give them your pitch, and they'll give you feedback. And you can actually practice different scenarios. You can have this person be somewhat receptive, very receptive, not receptive at all. That way you can also be practicing overcoming objections. Another cool thing about Fiverr is that if you want to find more people to give you feedback, you can request a gig for someone to do it for you. You just click on the shopping tab and then request a gig. So for this example, it could be as simple as I want somebody to Skype with me for 30 minutes to listen to my sales presentation and give me feedback. And then you'll get a whole bunch of people responding. So these are just some different examples of what Gonzalo's used Fiverr for. You can do the same thing. Obviously, there's a lot more available on Fiverr for you. Really, you just have to do a simple search and you'll find somebody that can do what you need them to do. Now, some of you might be wondering how to test people that you find on Fiverr. And really, you don't need to test them in the same way that you would use the automated hiring system to test, because that's geared more towards somebody that you would have part-time or full-time on your team. And so you would want to really test those people. The people on Fiverr, like I said before, you can look at their previous gigs, you can look at the reviews, and really the way Gonzalo looks at it is I can test them for $5. I can order one gig and see how they do, see the quality of their work. For $5, it's not going to break the bank. So that's really how he looks at testing on Fiverr. Now, the last thing I want to go over is some special tips if you're going to use Micro Workers or Amazon Mechanical Turks. The first tip is to run a small sample test before submitting a large volume of tasks. For example, let's say you want feedback from 200 people about your website. The first thing that you should do is just run a small sample test for 10 people, for 20 people, just to make sure that your instructions are clear and that they're giving you the kind of feedback that you're wanting. Because if not, then you can adjust it before you pay for 200 people to do that task for you. The second tip is to make sure that your worker instructions are very clear and that you prepare them carefully. This goes along with what I said before with running a small sample test. Really, the best way to see if your instructions are clear is to run a small sample test, because if you're not getting the kind of feedback and the answers or results that you're wanting, you know that you need to adjust those instructions. And the last tip is to just be prepared to deal with spam. When you're paying 5 cents, 10 cents for a task, you will have people that will try to get away with only doing half the task. Or if you're asking for feedback, they'll just type in hi and they won't really answer the questions that you're asking. So all you have to do is go in and just reject that task, say this person didn't perform, and you will get credit for it. But the main point is that if you go into it mentally knowing that, out of 200 people, 10 of them are going to be bozos and they're going to do this, it's not going to throw you off base. All right. So to wrap things up, we hope that this training has really been helpful. We hope that the different examples that we've given and the samples that we've shown have given you ideas of how you can use microtask outsourcing to help you in your own business.